she already did it once. On a hard court in Miami, as a wild card, ranked 140 in the world, 19 years old, facing the 5-time Grand Slam champion Iga Świątek in a quarterfinal, and she won. 6-2, 7-5, in straight sets, in one of the most shocking results in the 2025 season. Świątek, who had been the dominant force in women's tennis for years, walked off that court in Miami completely outplayed by a teenager from the Philippines who nobody outside of a small circle of believers had heard of. And now, 1 year later, the scenario is back on the table. Different country, different surface, different stage of their careers, but the same two players and the same intoxicating possibility. If Eala can win her first-round match against Leylah Fernandez and then get past 5th seed Jasmine Paolini in round 2, she faces Elena Rybakina in the quarterfinals. And if she can somehow navigate that, the projected semi-final opponent on her side of the Stuttgart draw is 3rd seed Iga Świątek, the 4-time Roland Garros champion. The woman Eala already beat in Miami. The woman who beat Eala back in Madrid last April on clay, 4-6, 6-4, 6-2, in a 3-set revenge match. 1 win each in the head-to-head, series tied at 1-all. And Stuttgart is where it could come to a deciding 3rd chapter. This is the full story of why a potential Eala vs. Świątek semifinal at the 2026 Porsche Tennis Grand Prix in Stuttgart is the most compelling matchup that could emerge from this entire draw, and why everything about this moment makes it the most important clay season of Eala's life. Let us begin with where this rivalry actually started, because the story of Eala and Świątek is one of the most extraordinary player stories in recent women's tennis, and it begins in a place that nobody expected. March 2025, the Miami Open. Eala was 19 years old. She had entered the tournament as a wild card at world number 140. She was not supposed to still be in the draw by the time the quarterfinals arrived. She had already beaten Jelena Ostapenko in round 1 and Madison Keys in round 2, both in straight sets, both Grand Slam champions, both victories that should have been impossible based on pure ranking alone. And then, in the quarterfinals, she faced Iga Świątek, the 5-time Grand Slam champion, the woman who had been the most dominant player in women's tennis since 2020, the defending Miami Open champion, the absolute favorite to win the tournament. And Eala played perhaps the finest match of her life. She ran down every ball. She returned from angles that Świątek had not seen coming. She broke the Polish champion's serve early and often. She controlled the match with her feet and her intelligence rather than overwhelming power. And she won 6-2, 7-5 in 1 hour and 39 minutes. When the final ball landed, Eala stood alone on that court in Miami with tears forming in her eyes, and said on camera that she was in complete disbelief, not because she had not believed in herself, but because the moment was so large and so real that it overwhelmed her. Świątek, for her part, gave an honest assessment afterward. She said Eala was aggressive. She said some of the shots were pretty out of nowhere. She said the young Filipina had kept her focus and disrupted the rhythm that Świątek depends on to dominate. Coming from a champion of Świątek's caliber, that is not a polite post-match comment. That is a genuine acknowledgement that she had been genuinely and thoroughly beaten. Then came Madrid, April 2025, about a month after Miami, their second meeting, this time on clay, the surface that Świątek has dominated more than any other player in the world over the last 5 years. Eala had been drawn against Świątek in the second round of the Mutua Madrid Open, and the rematch was everything the tennis world had been waiting for. Eala won the first set 4-6. She took the first set, on clay, against the 4-time French Open champion, and for a moment, the Miami result felt less like a one-off and more like the beginning of something. But Świątek, who had been here before, who had lost to unexpected players before and found a way back, reset her game and took control. She won the second set 6-4 and the third 6-2. The revenge was complete. Świątek prevailed 4-6, 6-4, 6-2, and served notice that she had studied what Eala did in Miami, and she had found the answers. So the head-to-head stands at 1 win each. One on hard court, one on clay. Both three-set battles, both genuinely competitive, and the questions that need to be answered in 2026 are obvious. Has Eala improved her clay court game enough to beat Świątek on that surface? Has Świątek found the mental and tactical approach to consistently handle what Eala brings? And is Stuttgart in April 2026 the place where one of them gets a decisive edge in one of the most interesting young rivalries in women's tennis? The context coming into Stuttgart makes those questions even more interesting. Both players have been training at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca. In the first week of April, the academy posted a photo of Eala and Świątek together, calling it a reunion, and asking fans if they remembered the last time the two were photographed there. It was a throwback to 2023, when Świątek was the guest of honor at Eala's graduation from the academy. They know each other. They practice together. They have a mutual respect that goes beyond rivalry. Świątek even worked with Francisco Roig, Rafael Nadal's former coach, during that preparation week in Mallorca. And Eala had Toni Nadal watching over her clay court sessions. Both players arrived in Stuttgart with some of the most elite clay court coaching knowledge in tennis, guiding their preparation. The stage is set for something extraordinary. Now let us talk about whether Eala actually getting to a Świątek semifinal in Stuttgart is even realistic. Because the path is as brutal as any you will find outside of a Grand Slam. First comes Leylah Fernandez in round 1, a former U.S. Open finalist ranked 25th in the world. Fernandez is 4-9 for the year and struggling for form. But she is dangerous and experienced, and will compete hard on a surface she has won on before. If Eala beats Fernandez, she faces 5th seed Jasmine Paolini in round 2. The Italian powerhouse, an 81% win rate on clay over the past year. A former French Open finalist. A player arriving in Stuttgart with full preparation and full motivation. Eala beat her in Dubai on hard court, but clay in Stuttgart is a completely different proposition. If Eala somehow beats Paolini, she faces top seed Elena Rybakina in the quarterfinals. The Wimbledon champion, the world number 2, the most powerful server in the draw. The player headlining Stuttgart in the absence of world number 1, Aryna Sabalenka. And if Eala somehow survives all of that, she faces 3rd seed Iga Świątek in the semifinals. The 4-time French Open champion, the woman who beat her last year in Madrid on clay, the woman making her 2026 clay debut in Stuttgart, arriving fresh and motivated, and working with Rafael Nadal's personal coach. Yahoo Sports described this draw as brutal. They said Eala's path would not look out of place late in a Grand Slam. They are right. This is not a favorable draw for a player ranked 45th in the world. This is the hardest possible test at exactly the right time. And for Eala, that is not a problem. That is actually perfect. Here is why. Throughout her entire career, the moments that have defined Eala have not been the matches she was supposed to win. They have been the matches she was not supposed to win. Nobody expected her to beat Świątek in Miami in 2025. Nobody expected her to beat Madison Keys. Nobody expected a wildcard ranked 140 to reach the semifinal of a WTA 1000 event. And yet, she did all of it. She rises to the occasion. She is not a player who beats the people below her and loses to the people above her. She is a player who finds something extra when the opponent across the net is a Grand Slam champion. That is who she is. She also has specific reasons to believe in her clay court ability right now. She worked with Toni Nadal in Mallorca on movement and ball control. She felt her movement was better than at any previous point in her career when she stepped onto the clay in Linz. She won her first clay match of the year against Grabher. She pushed Jelena Ostapenko, the defending Stuttgart champion, to 5-1 in the second set before an agonizing collapse. She is not the same clay court player she was a year ago, when she went winless across 4 clay events on the WTA Tour. The improvement is real. The preparation has been targeted. And the confidence that comes from beating a 4-time Grand Slam champion once already, even if the rematch went the other way, is the kind of confidence that does not expire. And there is one more factor that ties this entire story together in Stuttgart specifically. The last time these two players stood across a net from each other in a tournament they were both entered in before any matches had been played. That tournament was Stuttgart 2025. Last year, the same event. Świątek was ousted in the quarterfinals by Elena Ostapenko. She did not reach the final. She did not win the title, and Eala was not in that draw. But this year, they are both here. And if the draw plays out the way it is projected, they could share a semi-final court in the same city where Świątek fell short last year, and where Eala is making her Stuttgart debut. The symbolism of that is not lost on anyone paying attention, and Eala's full history with Stuttgart's clay, through the Rafa Nadal Academy, through Tony Nadal's guidance, through years of training on red clay in Mallorca, has been building toward moments exactly like this one. The question is not whether Eala belongs on that court with Świątek. She already proved she belongs there when she beat her in Miami. The question is whether the clay court work she has done this year, the movement improvements, the tactical adjustments, the mental preparation from one of the greatest clay court coaching dynasties in the history of the sport, is enough to beat a 4-time French Open champion on her best surface in front of a stadium full of people in Stuttgart, Germany. And just to be clear about what beating Świątek in Stuttgart would mean, it would not just be a good result. It would be a statement that redefines the clay season conversation entirely. It would mean Eala has beaten a 5-time Grand Slam champion twice. It would mean her clay court game has genuinely arrived at the highest level. It would send her into Madrid and Roland Garros not as a dangerous wildcard, but as a genuine contender. It would move her back into the top 30 in the rankings. And it would do something else, something that goes beyond ranking points and prize money. It would tell every single person who has been following this story since Miami 2025, every Filipino fan who stayed up through the night in every time zone, every person who bought a ticket to a tournament they had never been to before just to see this girl play. It would tell them that what they felt in Miami was not a one-time miracle. It was the beginning. The road to that moment starts today. Fernandez first, then Paolini, then Rybakina, then potentially Świątek. 4 of the best players in the world, one after another, on clay, at the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix in Stuttgart. Nobody gave Eala a chance in Miami in 2025, and she won anyway. Stuttgart in 2026 is a different surface, a different city, a different stage, but the spirit is exactly the same. And that spirit, more than any ranking or statistic or seeding, is what makes Eala the most dangerous player in this draw. Subscribe right now, and turn on notifications so you do not miss a single match from Stuttgart this week. Drop a comment below and tell me whether you believe Eala can make the semifinals and face Świątek. And if that match happens, who wins on clay? Check out the other videos on screen for more coverage of everything happening at the 2026 Porsche Tennis Grand Prix. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.